Oh, you thought we were only going to talk about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers this month? Ha! Ha 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 ha! Ha ha! Ha! That's right, readers. It's Power Rangers month here on Readus 101. Meaning, I'm going to be talking about nothing but Power Rangers. All of it. Which includes any and all series that happened after the Zordon Era when the show transitioned into a connected anthology series. Which, despite what either you or your purist-ass friend might believe, some were actually pretty good. Which is why for this Readus Relives, I'm going to recall my top 5 favorite series of Power Rangers after the Zordon Era. Starting with one of the more recent seasons, Power Rangers Dino Thunder. Now, despite this being very low on my list, I was actually really looking forward to this series. Why? Because I initially wanted to see how it compared to its Super Sentai counterpart, Zordon Sentai Kyoryuja. And despite some character comparisons between the Super Sentai series and the Power Rangers series, it pretty much stood out on its own. I like how it wasn't a complete cardboard cutout of the Super Sentai series, and that there are more original characters and more takes on their heroes and villains. Also, let's not forget that this is the Power Rangers series that gave us our very first African American Pink Ranger. Which brings me to number 4. Which brings me to number 4 on my list, Power Rangers Ninja Storm. I am not ashamed to admit this, readers. I wanted to know about Ninja Storm just because of the curiosity of it all. I caught it late, so I never watched it from beginning to end when it was on TV officially. And when I finally got around to watching Ninja Storm, I was intrigued by 3 things. Number 1, there were only 3 members of the team when the show first started. Number 2, it was the first time that in Power Rangers, the Yellow Ranger was a man. And number 3, the most important thing of all. Because I got into this show late, I had questions right off the bat because their Zordon figure in Ninja Storm was a freaking hamster, and I had questions. Nevertheless, when I started the story from the beginning, I eventually got them, and it was a pretty decent story. I like the fact that there was an Asian-dominant cast over the course of the series called Power Rangers Ninja Storm. They still used the trope of evil rangers that later on turned good to make a full 5-figure team while still at the same time introducing a 6th ranger. And you cannot tell me that the main villain of Ninja Storm didn't remind you of Ivan Ooze at least this much. Just this much. Number 3, Power Rangers Wild Force. Not liking most of the Power Rangers series that happened after Power Rangers in Space, this Wild Force brought me back to a sense of familiarity. Why didn't I like him? Well, Lost Galaxy was kinda convoluted. Also, I'm not that big of a fan of Power Ranger shows that deal with man-made morphers or like special protocol rangers that don't really hide their secret identity. I'm more of a fan of the ancient power type morphers or morphers based off of magic. And while I do understand that Wild Force also had that aspect of we're not really trying to hide our identity because we're still wearing these color-coded outfits specifically that Wild Force members wear when we're not morphed, the fantasy element and the overall tone of the story was enough to suck me in. I enjoyed the fact that the Rangers had to find multiple Zords outside the ones that they were assigned to. The arc that introduced the Lunar Wolf Ranger, which is one of my favorite 6th Rangers by the way, is just as good as Green with Evil, the arc that introduced Tommy Oliver. And speaking of the Lunar Wolf, he and the Blue Ranger related to me most of all. What do I mean by that? I mean that the Lunar Wolf and the Blue Ranger related to me specifically because of their special moves and their story arcs, respectively revolving around billiards and bowling, 2 of my favorite sports that I learned from my father. It was the first show outside of the Zordon Era that made me want to tune in every week to see what happened, both for the fights and for the story. That never happened at the same time. Number 2, Power Rangers Dino Thunder. Because obvious reason is obvious. No, but seriously, Tommy coming back for this show proved a very important point over the course of Power Rangers. It showed that even though Power Rangers is an anthology series now, these shows are connected. Because I watched Ninja Storm earlier, the 3-man team was easier for me to digest, especially since the main 3 characters were extremely likable to me, including the Yellow Ranger of the series, who always reminded me of Winona Ryder for some reason. Tommy being both a Ranger and a Zordon figure I thought was incredibly interesting to watch. Also, the theme song was a lot better than the theme songs that came after Power Rangers in Space, like, Jesus. Which brings me to my number one favorite Power Rangers show outside of the Zordon era. Which, if you paid attention to what I said over the course of this video, it's pretty easy for you to figure out. Huh? Ah, fine, it's Power Rangers Mystic Force. The number one reason that attracted me to Power Rangers Mystic Force at the time was that this was the very first Power Rangers show that was completely based off of magic, and that's kind of my thing. I honestly think that Power Rangers Mystic Force is one of the most creative seasons of Power Rangers since the Zordon era. Let's also not forget, readers, this is the very first Power Rangers show where the entire team had capes. The entire team. Not just the ally that kind of counts as a 6th Ranger but isn't really a Ranger. No, the entire team had capes. Also, after seeing bits and pieces of its Super Sentai equivalent, Maho Sentai Majilenja, it felt like its own unique story and didn't really feel like a cardboard cutout. Sure, there are bits and pieces that kind of mirrored it, but the majority of it was its own unique thing. And I'm kind of grateful for that. Also, the theme song is so great. It's like the most unique and good Power Rangers theme since Dino Thunder. It was also the first time I've ever seen a Power Rangers team that consisted more of 6 Rangers. And currently my only one because I have yet to see Jungle Fury. Because something tells me I'm not going to like it. Also, Daggeron, the Solaris Knight, he could get it. He could get all of it. So with that, readers, your homework assignment for the day. Write in the comments section below your favorite non-Zordon era Power Rangers series if you have one. Or if you don't, but you're interested in watching one, write the one that you're interested in watching one instead. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because I post new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and every other Friday. But until then, this is Readus 101. Class dismissed.